In my previous life, I died because of a man who didn't deserve a single breath I wasted on him. Chen Hao stood at the podium in the university's main auditorium, presenting my sustainable housing design to the panel of industry professionals as if it were his own creation. This innovative approach to eco-friendly architecture represents months of dedicated research, he said, with that charming smile that once made my heart skip a beat. The same smile he wore when he told me 3 days earlier, "Did you really think someone like you could compete with Song Yixuan? You're just a naive girl from the countryside who got lucky with a scholarship. No one will ever believe you could create something this sophisticated." The memory of his words still burns through me like acid. I remember sitting in the back row of that auditorium, watching him steal not just my work but my entire future, while Song Yixuan sat in the front row with her father, the dean of our architecture department. She looked so elegant in her designer dress, her perfectly styled hair catching the auditorium lights as she nodded approvingly at my stolen designs. Chen Hao had been dating her secretly for months, while I poured my soul into creating the breakthrough sustainable housing model that would change everything. I had worked 18-hour days in the lab, skipping meals, sacrificing sleep, believing I was building our future together. How laughable. When I tried to stand up and expose his theft, he had already prepared for that possibility. "Li Wei has been struggling with mental health issues lately," he announced to the panel with fake concern dripping from his voice. "She's become obsessed with claiming credit for collaborative work. I've been trying to help her, but her delusions have gotten worse." The industry professionals looked at me with pity and embarrassment as security escorted me from the building. Song Yixuan whispered something to her father, and they both shook their heads disapprovingly. Chen Hao watched me being dragged away with cold satisfaction in his eyes, the mask of fake concern already slipping. That night, I ran through the rain-soaked streets like a madwoman, my thesis portfolio clutched against my chest, tears mixing with rainwater on my face. 3 years of architectural studies, 2 years of relationship with Chen Hao, months of groundbreaking research on sustainable materials and energy-efficient design, all destroyed in a single afternoon. The internship with Beijing's most prestigious architectural firm, the one that would have launched my career, was now his. The recognition for innovation that should have been mine was now attached to his name. Even my own professors looked at me like I was a delusional student having a breakdown rather than a victim of intellectual theft. I couldn't see clearly through my tears and rage when I stepped into that intersection. The truck driver said later that I appeared out of nowhere, like I wanted to be hit. Maybe I did. The physical pain of broken bones and internal bleeding was nothing compared to the agony of watching my dreams being stolen and handed to someone else. As I lay dying on that cold asphalt, my blood mixing with rainwater in the gutters, my last coherent thought was about the injustice of it all. Chen Hao would graduate with honors using my work. He would marry Song Yixuan and inherit her family's connections. He would build a successful career on the foundation of my stolen innovation. And I would be forgotten as the mentally unstable girl who couldn't handle academic pressure. But then I opened my eyes and found myself back in my cramped dormitory room, sunlight streaming through the thin curtains, my roommate Xiao Mei humming softly as she organized her textbooks. The calendar on my desk read 3 months before the internship presentation. 3 months before Chen Hao would steal my work and destroy my life. I sat up so quickly that my head spun, my heart hammering against my ribs as I processed what had happened. The sustainable housing design still existed only in my private files. Chen Hao hadn't seen it yet. Song Yixuan was still just the dean's pretty daughter who occasionally attended department events. The theft hadn't happened because I hadn't yet been stupid enough to trust him with my research. This time, I know exactly who Chen Hao really is. I've seen the calculating coldness behind his charming facade. I've experienced firsthand How effortlessly he can lie to a room full of professionals and make them believe I'm delusional. I know that his affection for me is nothing more than strategic positioning to access my academic work. I know that he's been cultivating Song Yixuan as a backup plan since the beginning of our relationship. I know that his future success depends entirely on stealing innovations from students too naive to protect themselves. Most importantly, I know that he sees me as nothing more than a convenient stepping stone to be discarded once he's extracted everything useful. But Chen Hao has no idea that I remember everything. He doesn't know that I've already seen how his story ends when he gets everything he wants by destroying me. He thinks he's still dealing with the same trusting, helpful girlfriend who would share her research without a second thought. He thinks he can still manipulate me with sweet words and false promises about our future together. He thinks I'm still the naive girl from the countryside who believes that love and hard work are enough to succeed in this world. How pathetically wrong he is. In my previous life, I was so desperate to prove myself worthy of his love that I handed him every tool he needed to destroy me. I shared my research because I thought we were partners. I introduced him to my professors because I wanted him to succeed. I defended him to my parents when they said he seemed opportunistic. I even helped him improve his own mediocre designs because I believed his success would be our success. Every kindness I showed him became a weapon he used against me. Every vulnerability I revealed became ammunition for his final betrayal. My devotion to him was nothing more than complicity in my own destruction. This time, things will be very different. This time, I'll protect my work with the paranoia of someone who knows exactly how it can be stolen. This time, I'll document every interaction, every request, every suspicious moment. This time, I'll build relationships with professors and industry professionals based on my own merit, not through his manipulation. This time, when Chen Hao tries to position himself for the theft that destroyed my previous life, he'll discover that Li Wei is no longer the naive girl who believes in fairness and happy endings. This time, he'll learn what it means to underestimate someone who has already died from his betrayal once. The soft knock on my door interrupts my planning. "Wei Wei, are you awake? Chen Hao is here to see you," Xiaomei calls through the thin walls. Of course he is. In my previous life, this was the morning he first asked to see my preliminary research for what would become the Sustainable Housing Project. This was the beginning of months of careful manipulation, where he slowly gained access to my work while positioning himself as the brilliant boyfriend who deserved to share in any success. This was the first step in the systematic theft that would eventually kill me. I smile coldly as I get dressed, choosing clothes that make me look put together and confident rather than eager to please. Let him come. Let him try his practiced charm and calculated vulnerability. Let him attempt to manipulate the girl who died from trusting him. This time, I'm ready for Chen Hao's games. This time, I already know how every move ends. This time, the naive girl from the countryside is going to teach the city boy what real strategy looks like. My wonderful life is just beginning, and his has 3 months left before it starts falling apart. The aftermath of my presentation, victory unfolds with the swift efficiency of justice finally served, as industry professionals and faculty members surround me with congratulations and opportunities that exceed even my most ambitious dreams. Dr. Liu approaches with a formal contract that makes my internship selection official, along with additional offers that represent the kind of career acceleration I never imagined possible. Li Wei, based on your presentation and the innovation you've demonstrated, we'd like to offer you not just the internship, but a guaranteed position in our research and development division upon graduation, with patent support for your sustainable housing designs. The irony is delicious and perfect. Chen Hao's attempt to steal my work and destroy my career has actually resulted in me achieving far greater success than I ever reached in my previous life. His criminal targeting of me created the documentation and evidence trail that proved my intellectual property rights beyond any possible dispute, making my research more valuable and protected than it would have been if he had simply left me alone. The predator who tried to destroy me has inadvertently become the architect of my greatest triumph. Song Yixuan's genuine happiness for my success represents the kind of friendship that Chen Hao's manipulation made impossible in my previous life, when his lies and scheming kept potential allies suspicious and isolated from each other. I'm so proud of you for turning his attempt to destroy you into the foundation of your greatest success, she says, as we walk across campus together, her words carrying the weight of someone who understands exactly what I've overcome. Chen Hao thought he could use both of us, but instead, he created the alliance that exposed his true nature and protected other students. The news of Chen Hao's final humiliation at my presentation spreads through social media and campus networks with the viral intensity that only true justice can achieve. Students who witnessed his desperate attempt to claim credit for my work after his criminal conviction share videos and commentary that ensure his pathetic behavior will be remembered and mocked for years to come. The hashtag #PredatorExposed trends on campus social media, with my successful presentation serving as proof that victims can triumph over those who try to destroy them. Professor Zhang's invitation to co-author a paper on academic integrity and predator prevention provides the perfect opportunity to transform my traumatic experience into systemic protection for future students. Your case has revealed patterns and warning signs that could help other students recognize and protect themselves from similar predation, he explains as we discuss the research project. Your courage in documenting and exposing Chen Hao's crimes could prevent countless other students from experiencing what you survived. The most satisfying aspect of my victory is learning that the other students Chen Hao victimized have also found their voices and are pursuing their own justice, inspired by my successful exposure of his criminal behavior. 3 additional victims have filed formal complaints and criminal charges, while 2 others have recovered stolen research that they're now presenting under their own names for the first time. My decision to fight back instead of suffering in silence has created a wave of justice that extends far beyond my personal revenge. Chen Hao's parents' public statement, distancing themselves from his behavior and expressing support for his victims, provides additional validation that his destruction is complete and permanent. We are horrified by our son's criminal actions against his fellow students and deeply ashamed that we raised someone capable of such predatory behavior, their statement reads. We fully support the victims in pursuing justice and hope that Chen Hao faces the maximum penalties for his crimes. Even his own family has abandoned him in recognition of his irredeemable character. The criminal prosecutor's update on Chen Hao's case reveals that his charges have been upgraded to felony assault and organized criminal activity due to the systematic nature of his predation and the number of victims involved. His bail has been revoked following his unauthorized appearance at the university, and he now faces a potential sentence of 5 to 10 years in prison. The legal consequences will ensure that his criminal behavior is permanently documented and that he can never again target vulnerable students. Dean Song's announcement of new policies and protections inspired by my case represents institutional change that will protect future students from academic predators like Chen Hao. Li Wei's courage in exposing systematic research theft and assault has led to comprehensive reforms in how we protect student intellectual property and respond to predatory behavior, he declares at a faculty meeting that I'm invited to attend. Her experience has made our entire academic community safer and more vigilant. The job offers and graduate school opportunities that flood my email following news of my presentation success represent a level of professional recognition that validates every moment of fear, planning, and strategic thinking that went into protecting myself from Chen Hao's predation. Harvard, MIT, and Stanford all extend invitations for graduate research positions, while 3 major architectural firms offer starting salaries that exceed what I dreamed of earning after 5 years of experience in my previous life. Most importantly, the trauma and fear that dominated my consciousness since my rebirth are finally beginning to fade, replaced by confidence and excitement about a future that belongs entirely to me. The nightmares about Chen Hao's betrayal and my past life death are losing their power over my sleep, while my days are filled with productive planning for opportunities that my own merit has earned. The naive girl who died trusting a predator has been replaced by someone who understands her own worth and refuses to let anyone diminish it. The final closure comes when I receive a desperate letter from Chen Hao in jail, attempting one last manipulation by appealing to my mercy and claiming that his love for me was genuine despite his criminal behavior. Wei Wei, I know I made terrible mistakes, but what we had together was real. Please don't let them destroy my entire future over some research projects that we could have shared anyway. I'm begging you to speak to the prosecutor about reducing the charges. His pathetic attempt to minimize assault and theft as mistakes, while claiming entitlement to my work, even from prison, reveals that he has learned absolutely nothing from his downfall. My response is swift, final, and devastating in its complete indifference to his suffering. Chen Hao, what you call love was systematic predation, and what you call mistakes were premeditated crimes. I don't forgive people who try to destroy me, and I certainly don't help them escape the consequences of their own actions. Your future was destroyed by your choices, not by my justice. I hope your time in prison gives you opportunity to reflect on what it means to prey on innocent people. The letter provides perfect closure by demonstrating that the predator's power over me is completely and permanently broken. As I prepare for my new internship and the limitless opportunities opening before me, I realize that Chen Hao's attempt to destroy my life has actually created the most satisfying possible ending to our story. He sits in prison, facing years of incarceration and permanent professional destruction, while I embark on a career that exceeds my wildest previous life dreams. The victim he tried to eliminate has become successful beyond his capacity to imagine, while the predator who thought he could manipulate and exploit vulnerable students has learned that some prey are more dangerous than they appear. The transformation from naive victim to strategic victor feels complete as I look toward a future filled with achievement, recognition, and the deep satisfaction that comes from turning trauma into triumph. Chen Hao thought he could steal my work, destroy my reputation, and eliminate me as competition for opportunities he believed belonged to him. Instead, he has inadvertently provided me with the evidence, motivation, and documentation needed to achieve success that dwarfs anything he ever dreamed of accomplishing through theft and manipulation. Sometimes the best revenge is living so well that your enemies can only watch in despair from the ruins of their own making. 6 months after Chen Hao's sentencing to 7 years in prison for systematic academic predation and assault, I stand in the gleaming headquarters of Beijing's most prestigious architectural firm, reviewing blueprints for the sustainable housing project that has already attracted international attention and investment. The irony that my work is being implemented on a scale that exceeds even my most ambitious previous life dreams, while Chen Hao serves time in a concrete cell, is almost overwhelming in its perfect justice. This is what success looks like when it belongs to its rightful creator. My internship has evolved into a full-time position with responsibilities typically reserved for architects with decades of experience, largely because my innovations in biomimetic materials and passive solar design have proven commercially viable beyond anything the firm had previously imagined. Li Wei, the Ministry of Housing wants to discuss implementing your sustainable design principles in the National Affordable Housing Initiative, Dr. Liu announces as he enters my office with obvious excitement. Your work could influence residential construction across the entire country. The recognition extends far beyond professional success into academic acclaim that validates every moment of fear and strategic planning that went into protecting my research from Chen Hao's predation. 3 major universities have offered me full scholarships for graduate study, while 2 international journals have requested exclusive rights to publish my research on sustainable architectural innovation. Professor Zhang calls regularly with updates about speaking invitations and collaborative opportunities that represent the kind of career I never dared imagine in my previous life. Song Yixuan's friendship has blossomed into the supportive professional relationship that Chen Hao's manipulation made impossible when he was dividing us against each other for his own benefit. She now works at her father's architectural consulting firm, where she regularly refers clients interested in sustainable design to my projects and innovations. It's strange to think that Chen Hao brought us together by trying to manipulate both of us, she reflects during one of our monthly dinners. His attempt to pit us against each other actually created the alliance that destroyed him. The other students Chen Hao victimized have also found their voices and reclaimed their stolen work, creating a support network of survivors who help each other navigate the aftermath of academic predation. 2 of his victims have published their recovered research under their own names, while another has started a non-profit organization dedicated to protecting students from intellectual property theft. My decision to fight back, rather than suffer in silence, has created ripple effects of justice that extend far beyond my personal revenge. My parents' pride in my achievements provides emotional validation that feels deeper and more meaningful than any professional recognition, partly because they understand the full scope of what I overcame to reach this point. We always knew you were brilliant, but watching you turn betrayal into triumph shows a strength we never imagined, my mother says during their visit to see my new office and meet my colleagues. You've grown into someone who protects herself and others, and we're so proud of who you've become. The comprehensive policy changes implemented by universities across the country in response to Chen Hao's case have created systematic protections that will prevent future students from experiencing the predation I survived. Academic integrity training now includes specific modules on recognizing and reporting research theft, while digital documentation systems automatically track and timestamp student work to prevent appropriation claims. My traumatic experience has been transformed into institutional change that protects countless other potential victims. Industry recognition for my sustainable housing innovations has reached international levels, with invitations to present my work at conferences in Japan, Germany, and the United States. The World Green Building Council has nominated my designs for their annual Innovation Award, while several European firms have requested licensing agreements to implement my materials and energy systems in their own projects. The global impact of work that Chen Hao tried to steal and claim as his own represents the most satisfying possible vindication. The financial success that accompanies professional recognition has allowed me to support causes that matter deeply to me, including funding legal assistance for students who face academic predation and establishing a scholarship program for promising young architects from rural backgrounds. My ability to help others while building my own career represents the kind of meaningful success that Chen Hao's shallow opportunism could never have achieved, even if his theft had succeeded. Most importantly, the constant fear and hypervigilance that dominated my consciousness since rebirth have finally faded into background awareness, replaced by confidence in my ability to recognize and respond to threats while focusing primarily on positive opportunities and relationships. The trauma of my past life, betrayal, and death no longer controls my daily experience, though it remains available as wisdom that helps me protect myself and guide others who face similar challenges. Professor Zhang's invitation to co-teach a course on academic integrity and intellectual property protection provides the perfect opportunity to transform my experience into educational content that will help future students recognize and prevent predatory behavior before it damages their careers. Your case has become the definitive example of how victims can protect themselves and seek justice, he explains as we develop the curriculum. Teaching other students your strategies could prevent countless tragedies. The casual mention of Chen Hao's current situation during a campus security briefing provides closure without reopening emotional wounds that have finally healed. The former student who was convicted of systematic research theft and assault is serving his sentence at a medium security facility outside the city, the security chief reports matter-of-factly. His attempts to appeal his conviction have been unsuccessful, and he remains barred from all academic institutions permanently. His complete removal from the world where he caused such damage feels like perfect justice. The contrast between my thriving career and Chen Hao's imprisonment could not be more stark or satisfying. While he counts days in a cell and faces the reality that his criminal behavior has permanently destroyed any possibility of legitimate success, I wake up each morning excited about projects that matter, relationships that support me, and opportunities that reflect my genuine abilities rather than stolen innovations. This is what victory looks like when justice is truly served. As I prepare for my upcoming presentation at the International Sustainable Architecture Summit, I realize that the naive girl who died trusting a predator has been completely replaced by someone who understands her own worth and refuses to let anyone diminish it. The trauma that could have destroyed me has been transformed into strength that protects me and helps others. Chen Hao's attempt to steal my life and work has inadvertently created the most successful and meaningful career I could have imagined. Looking toward a future filled with unlimited potential and meaningful work, I understand that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living so extraordinarily well that your enemies can only watch in despair from the consequences of their own choices. Chen Hao thought he could eliminate me as competition and steal my innovations for his own advancement. Instead, he has provided me with the motivation and documentation needed to achieve success that dwarfs anything he ever dreamed of accomplishing. Sometimes, justice is simply allowing people to face the full consequences of their own actions while you thrive beyond their capacity to harm you. 2 years after Chen Hao's conviction and imprisonment, I walk across the graduation stage with highest honors, accepting my degree in front of an audience that includes industry leaders, fellow students, and the parents whose pride in my transformation from victim to victor fills me with deep satisfaction. The irony that I'm receiving recognition in the same auditorium where Chen Hao once tried to steal my work and destroy my credibility feels like perfect closure to a story that began with betrayal and ends with triumph beyond my wildest previous life dreams. Dr. Liu's announcement during the graduation ceremony that my sustainable housing innovations are being implemented in residential projects across 3 countries represents the kind of global impact that validates every moment of fear, planning, and strategic resistance that went into protecting my research from academic predation. Li Wei's breakthrough designs are revolutionizing how we think about eco-friendly construction, he declares to the assembled crowd. Her work will improve lives and protect the environment for generations to come. The standing ovation that greets his announcement echoes with justice finally served, washing over me as I stand in the exact spot where Chen Hao once claimed credit for work that was never his. This time, the recognition belongs to its rightful creator, and everyone present understands the significance of that recognition. The naive girl who died believing in fairness and trust has been replaced by someone who earned success through her own brilliance and courage to protect what was hers. Song Yixuan's presence in the audience with her father represents the friendship that Chen Hao's manipulation could never destroy, built on mutual respect rather than competition for a predator's attention. After the ceremony, she approaches with genuine happiness that makes our shared victory over Chen Hao's schemes feel complete. "I'm so glad we became allies instead of rivals," she says warmly. "Your courage in exposing him protected both of us and created something beautiful from his attempt to divide us." Professor Zhang's final words to me as I prepare to leave for my graduate studies abroad carry the weight of a mentor who witnessed my transformation from traumatized victim to confident victor. "Li Hui, you've shown that predators only succeed when their victims remain isolated and silent," he reflects with obvious pride. "Your decision to fight back and protect others has made our entire academic community safer. Your legacy here extends far beyond your research achievements." The brief final encounter with Chen Hao comes unexpectedly as I'm loading my belongings into a car for my departure to Harvard, where I've been accepted into their most prestigious graduate architecture program. He appears across the street from my apartment building, apparently on supervised release for a court appearance, looking diminished and hollow in the orange jumpsuit that marks his status as a convicted felon. The sight of him no longer triggers fear or anger, only complete indifference to his existence. Our eyes meet for perhaps 3 seconds before I deliberately turn away and continue my packing, demonstrating that his presence has no power to disturb my peace or interrupt my progress toward an extraordinary future. He calls my name once, his voice carrying the desperation of someone whose entire world has collapsed, but I don't acknowledge his attempt to engage. The predator who once controlled my life through fear and manipulation has become irrelevant to my success and happiness. The contrast between our current situations could not be more stark or satisfying. While Chen Hao faces years of continued imprisonment, followed by permanent professional exile as a convicted felon, I prepare to begin graduate study at the world's most prestigious university, with full scholarship support and research funding that will allow me to expand my sustainable housing innovations. His attempt to steal my future has inadvertently created opportunities for me that exceed anything I achieved in my previous life. My parents' final words before my departure for Harvard capture the magnitude of what has been accomplished through courage and strategic thinking. "We're proud that you turned the worst betrayal into the greatest triumph," my father says as they help load my research materials. "You've shown that victims don't have to remain victims if they're brave enough to fight for justice." Their validation feels deeper than any professional recognition because it acknowledges both my suffering and my strength. The email I receive from Chen Hao's latest victim, a former high school classmate who recognized his pattern of predatory behavior from news coverage of my case, reminds me that justice extends beyond personal revenge to protection of future targets. "Your courage in exposing him gave me the strength to report what he did to me years ago," she writes gratefully. "Because of your case, there's now evidence of his predatory behavior dating back to adolescence. Your victory helped me find my voice too." As my plane lifts off toward Boston and the limitless opportunities waiting at Harvard, I reflect on the complete transformation that began with rebirth and ends with liberation. The trauma that could have destroyed me became the foundation for achievements that surpass my most ambitious dreams. Chen Hao's attempt to eliminate me as competition has inadvertently motivated me to reach heights of success he could never have imagined, even through theft and manipulation. The sustainable housing projects bearing my name are already under construction in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, while international licensing agreements will bring my innovations to Europe and North America within the year. The global impact of work that Chen Hao tried to steal represents vindication beyond revenge. It's proof that protecting yourself from predators allows you to contribute meaningfully to the world rather than merely surviving their attacks. Most importantly, the constant vigilance and fear that dominated my consciousness since rebirth have been replaced by confidence and excitement about a future that belongs entirely to me. Evil deeds have indeed met with retribution as Chen Hao serves his sentence, while I embark on opportunities that reflect my genuine abilities. The past is no longer important, because my life is now filled with light that no predator can extinguish. Looking down at the city where I died in my previous life, I understand that the best revenge isn't destruction of your enemies. It's living so extraordinarily well that their attempts to harm you become the foundation for your greatest achievements. Chen Hao thought he could steal my innovations and eliminate me as competition. Instead, he provided the motivation and evidence needed to build success beyond his capacity to imagine or destroy. The naive girl from the countryside who trusted a predator is gone forever, replaced by someone who protects herself and others while creating innovations that improve the world. My wonderful life is truly just beginning, and it belongs completely to me. Opening the door to face Chen Hao feels like stepping into a battlefield where I already know the outcome of every skirmish. He stands there with that perfectly practiced smile, holding a cup of my favorite milk tea from the campus shop, his hair styled just the way I used to love. "Good morning, beautiful. I brought you breakfast." In my previous life, this gesture made me melt with gratitude. I thought it showed how considerate and thoughtful he was, how much he cared about my well-being. Now I can see it for what it really is. The opening move in a manipulation strategy designed to make me feel indebted and grateful before he asks for what he really wants. "How thoughtful of you," I say, accepting the tea with a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. He doesn't notice the change in my expression because he's already scanning my desk, looking for glimpses of my work. In my previous life, I kept my research materials scattered everywhere, never thinking that someone I loved might steal from me. Now, everything important is locked away in encrypted files on a laptop he's never touched. You seem different today, Weiwei. More focused somehow. His observation sends a chill down my spine because it confirms what I already suspected. Chen Hao has been watching me carefully, cataloging my habits and reactions, looking for opportunities to exploit my trust. I pretend to organize my textbooks while studying his face, noting the calculating way his eyes move around my room. This is the man who convinced a panel of industry professionals that I was mentally unstable when I tried to reclaim my stolen work. This is the man who held me while I cried about academic pressure, all while planning to create that pressure by sabotaging my career. This is the man who told me he loved me while secretly dating the dean's daughter for her connections. Looking at him now, I can't understand how I ever missed the predatory intelligence behind his charming facade. Love really does make people blind to the most obvious dangers. "I've been thinking about our conversation last week," he says casually, settling into my desk chair like he owns it. "About how important it is for us to support each other's academic goals. I was wondering if you'd made any progress on that environmental architecture project you mentioned." There it is. The exact same approach he used in my previous life, starting with vague references to mutual support, before gradually escalating his requests for access to my research. In my previous life, I eagerly shared my preliminary ideas because I thought we were building something together. I thought his interest in my work meant he respected my intelligence and wanted to learn from me. How pathetically naive I was. Chen Hao has never been interested in learning anything from me except which ideas he can steal and which vulnerabilities he can exploit. His support for my academic goals extends only to ensuring that any success I achieve can be claimed by him later. His request for my preliminary ideas is just the first step in a systematic theft that will culminate in him presenting my completed research as his own work. I remember every detail of how this conversation originally unfolded because it was the beginning of the end of my previous life. Actually, I've decided to focus on different research this semester. I lie smoothly, watching his face for micro-expressions of frustration. Professor Zhang suggested I explore historical preservation techniques instead of environmental innovation. He thinks it might be a better fit for someone with my background. The disappointment flickers across his features so quickly that I almost miss it, but I've been watching for exactly this reaction. Chen Hao isn't interested in historical preservation because it's not marketable enough for the internship competition. He needs cutting-edge environmental research to impress the industry professionals who will be judging our presentations. His recovery is impressively quick, I'll give him that. That's interesting. But don't you think environmental architecture is more relevant to current industry trends? I mean, sustainability is such a hot topic right now. You could really make a name for yourself with the right approach. The way he phrases this suggestion makes it sound like he's giving me career advice out of genuine concern for my future. In my previous life, I interpreted this kind of manipulation as evidence that he believed in my potential and wanted to help me succeed. Now I can hear the underlying message clearly. Focus on the research I need you to do, so I can steal it from you later. I pretend to consider his advice thoughtfully, while internally marveling at his audacity. Chen Hao is literally trying to steer me toward creating the exact same research he stole in my previous life. He's not just a thief, he's so arrogant that he thinks he can manipulate me into recreating the specific innovation he needs to secure his own success. The sustainable housing design that killed me when he stole it isn't just any project to him. It's the centerpiece of his entire strategy for winning the internship and impressing Song Yixuan's family. Without access to my work, his own mediocre abilities will be exposed for what they really are. You might be right, I say finally, pulling out a notebook and pretending to jot down his suggestions. Maybe I should reconsider the environmental focus. Do you have any specific ideas about what direction might be most impressive? I'm testing him now, seeing how much he'll reveal about his expectations for my research. In my previous life, I asked this same question because I genuinely wanted his input. Now I'm asking because I want to understand the full scope of his planned theft before I begin documenting his attempts. Chen Hao leans forward eagerly, and I can practically see the calculations running behind his eyes. Well, if I were approaching environmental architecture, I'd probably focus on something really innovative. Maybe sustainable materials combined with energy-efficient design principles. Something that could revolutionize how we think about eco-friendly housing. He's describing my stolen research, almost word for word, as if the ideas are his own original thoughts. The sheer audacity of it makes my blood boil, but I keep my expression neutral and interested. That sounds fascinating, I murmur, continuing to take notes. I'll definitely give it some serious thought. Actually, would you mind if I recorded our conversation? I want to make sure I capture all your insights accurately. The suggestion makes him visibly uncomfortable, though he tries to hide it behind another charming smile. In my previous life, I never would have thought to document our discussions because I trusted him completely. Now I know that evidence is the only thing that will protect me when he inevitably claims my work as his own. Recording might make our conversation feel less natural, he says carefully. Besides, I'm not really an expert on environmental architecture. I wouldn't want my random thoughts to limit your creative process. His refusal to be recorded tells me everything I need to know about his intentions. Chen Hao is already planning to deny these conversations ever happened when I eventually accuse him of theft. He's already preparing his defense strategy for the moment when I try to reclaim my stolen work. The level of premeditation in his manipulation is truly breathtaking. My phone buzzes with a text message, and I glance at the screen to see Chen Hao's name. Need help with portfolio review tonight? Your designs always inspire me. The message was sent just 2 minutes ago, while he's sitting right here in my room. I realize with cold clarity that he's creating a digital trail of fake romantic messages to support his image as the devoted boyfriend. In my previous life, I treasured these sweet texts as evidence of his affection. Now I understand they're part of an elaborate performance designed to make our relationship appear genuine to anyone who might investigate later. Everything okay? He asks, noting my expression as I stare at my phone. Just checking my schedule for this week, I reply, taking a screenshot of his message before deleting it. Let him create his fake evidence trail. This time, I'll be creating my own documentation of his manipulation tactics. Actually, I should probably get ready for my morning class. Professor Zhang wants to discuss my research direction in more detail. The mention of Professor Zhang makes Chen Hao stiffen slightly, though he tries to cover it with casual interest. Professor Zhang is pretty old-fashioned, isn't he? I hope he doesn't discourage you from pursuing innovative approaches. The subtle criticism is meant to undermine my relationship with the one professor who genuinely supports my work. In my previous life, comments like this gradually convinced me to distance myself from mentors who might have protected me from Chen Hao's schemes. This time, I'll be strengthening those relationships instead of sabotaging them based on his manipulative suggestions. As Chen Hao finally leaves my room, I lock the door behind him and lean against it, my heart racing with a mixture of rage and determination. Every word he spoke, every gesture he made, every micro-expression that crossed his face confirmed what I already knew about his true nature. But experiencing his manipulation tactics firsthand, while fully aware of his intentions, is almost overwhelming. The man I once loved enough to die for is nothing more than a calculating predator who sees me as prey to be consumed for his own advancement. I pull out my laptop and begin typing a detailed account of this morning's conversation, including timestamps, exact quotes, and my analysis of his manipulation techniques. In my previous life, I had no evidence to support my accusations when Chen Hao stole my work, because I never suspected I would need it. This time, I'll document everything with the paranoia of someone who has already been betrayed once. Every conversation, every text message, every request for access to my research will be recorded and preserved. The real Li Wei died 3 months from now because she was too trusting to protect herself from someone who claimed to love her. But I'm not the real Li Wei anymore. I'm someone who has already seen the full scope of Chen Hao's cruelty and lived with the consequences. I'm someone who knows exactly how his mind works and what he's planning to do. I'm someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to gain from exposing him for what he really is. This time, Chen Hao picked the wrong victim. This time, he's going to learn what happens when you try to destroy someone who's already died from your betrayal once before. 3 weeks into my new life, Chen Hao makes his first real move to access my research, and I'm ready for him. Wei Wei, I've been thinking about that environmental architecture project we discussed, he says during our lunch together in the campus cafeteria, his voice carefully casual as he picks at his noodles. I was wondering if you'd made any progress on the sustainable materials angle. Maybe I could take a look at your preliminary research. You know how much I value your brilliant mind. The compliment slides off his tongue with practiced ease, but I can hear the underlying hunger for my work. In my previous life, this moment was when I first showed him my early sketches for the sustainable housing design. I was so flattered by his interest and so eager to share my ideas with someone who claimed to appreciate my intelligence. I remember the way his eyes lit up when he saw my innovation in combining recycled materials with energy-efficient design principles. I thought his excitement meant he was proud of my creativity. Now I understand he was already calculating how to steal my concepts and present them as his own insights. Actually, I've been keeping my research pretty close to the vest lately, I reply, watching his face carefully for signs of frustration. Professor Zhang suggested I be more protective of my work until I'm ready to publish. He mentioned something about intellectual property concerns in academic environments. The lie flows smoothly because it's based on truth. Professor Zhang did give me this advice in my previous life, but only after Chen Hao had already stolen everything valuable. This time, I'm implementing his wisdom before I need it. Chen Hao's chopsticks pause halfway to his mouth, and I catch the flash of annoyance that crosses his features before he recovers with another charming smile. That seems a bit paranoid, don't you think? I mean, we're all students here working toward the same goals. Collaboration and sharing ideas is how we learn and grow together. He's trying to make my caution sound unreasonable, turning my self-protection into a character flaw. This is exactly the kind of manipulation that worked on me before, appealing to my desire to be seen as generous and collaborative rather than selfish and suspicious. Maybe you're right, I say, pretending to consider his perspective while internally documenting his manipulation tactics. But I've been hearing some concerning stories about students having their work plagiarized. Just last month, a graduate student in the engineering department discovered that her research partner had submitted her thesis proposal under his own name. The story is true. I learned about it through campus gossip after my own theft had already occurred. Using it now serves as both a warning and a test of Chen Hao's reaction to academic theft being exposed and punished. His discomfort with the topic is barely concealed behind his mask of sympathetic concern. That's terrible for her, but surely you don't think I would ever do something like that to you. We're in a relationship, Weiwei. We're supposed to trust each other and support each other's success. The way he frames this as a relationship issue, rather than an academic one, reveals his strategy perfectly. He wants to make any reluctance to share my work seem like a betrayal of our romantic bond, rather than a reasonable protective measure. Of course I trust you, I lie smoothly, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand while studying his expression. I'm just being extra careful, because this project feels really important. I think it could be something special. The irony of reassuring my future betrayer about my trust makes my stomach turn. But I need to maintain the facade long enough to gather the evidence I'll need later. Chen Hao relaxes visibly when I touch him, convinced that his manipulation is working as intended. I'm glad you feel that way about your research, he says, his grip on my hand tightening possessively. Just remember that your success is my success too. We're a team, building our future together. Every word of this declaration will become ammunition against me when he eventually claims my work as collaborative effort. In my previous life, I treasured these promises of shared success right up until the moment he destroyed my reputation to protect his theft. The phrase, "we're a team," will be thrown back at me as evidence that I always intended to share credit for my innovations. After lunch, I make my way to Professor Zhang's office for a meeting I scheduled specifically to begin building the protective relationships Chen Hao will try to undermine later. The elderly professor greets me with the warm smile I remember from my previous life, though this time I appreciate his kindness without taking it for granted. Li Hui, please sit down. I've been reviewing your preliminary proposals, and I'm quite impressed with your innovative thinking. His office smells like tea and old books, filled with architectural models and awards from decades of distinguished teaching. Thank you, Professor. I wanted to discuss some concerns I have about protecting my research while I'm developing it. I decide to be direct about my needs rather than dancing around the subject. In my previous life, I was too embarrassed to admit that I needed help protecting myself from academic predators. This time, I understand that asking for protection is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. I've been hearing troubling stories about student work being appropriated, and I want to make sure I'm taking appropriate precautions. Professor Zhang's expression grows serious, and he nods approvingly at my caution. You're wise to think about intellectual property protection early in your research process. Too many brilliant students have had their innovations stolen because they trusted the wrong people. His words carry the weight of experience, suggesting that he's seen this kind of theft before and knows how to prevent it. I can help you establish proper documentation and filing procedures to ensure your work remains clearly attributable to you. I would be grateful for any guidance you can provide, I reply sincerely. I'm particularly concerned about collaborative relationships, where the lines of individual contribution might become blurred. The euphemistic language allows me to reference my concerns about Chen Hao without making direct accusations I can't yet prove. Professor Zhang is experienced enough to read between the lines and understand that I'm worried about a specific person rather than general academic theft. Ah, yes. Romantic relationships can be particularly complicated when it comes to intellectual property, he says delicately, confirming that he's grasped the subtext of my concerns. Young people often believe that love means sharing everything, including academic work. Unfortunately, some individuals are skilled at exploiting that generosity. His diplomatic phrasing tells me that he's encountered this exact situation before and knows how it typically ends for the trusting partner. We spend the next hour establishing protocols for documenting my research progress, including time-stamped drafts, concept development records, and secure file storage systems. Professor Zhang also provides me with contact information for the university's Academic Integrity Office and suggests I begin keeping detailed logs of any requests for access to my work. By the time I leave his office, I have a comprehensive protection strategy that would have saved my life if I'd implemented it in my previous timeline. Walking back across campus, I spot Chen Hao near the library, talking intently with Song Yixuan, and my blood runs cold as I recognize the scene from my memories. In my previous life, I stumbled upon this exact conversation 3 months later, just days before Chen Hao stole my presentation. At that time, seeing them together filled me with jealousy and insecurity that he exploited to manipulate me further. Now, witnessing their interaction with full knowledge of their future relationship, I feel only calculating interest in gathering intelligence about their developing alliance. I position myself behind a nearby tree where I can observe them without being seen, grateful for the eavesdropping skills I never needed in my trusting previous life. My father is very interested in innovative environmental architecture, Song Yixuan is saying, her voice carrying clearly across the courtyard. He's particularly looking for fresh approaches to sustainable housing design. Students who demonstrate real innovation in that area would definitely catch his attention for internship opportunities. Chen Hao's response confirms my worst suspicions about his motivations and timeline. I've been working on some really exciting concepts in that exact area. Sustainable materials, energy efficiency, revolutionary approaches to eco-friendly housing. I think your father would be very impressed with what I've developed. The casual way he claims ownership of ideas that don't exist yet reveals his absolute confidence that he'll be able to steal my work when the time comes. He's already promising Song Yixuan's father innovations that exist only in my encrypted files. I'd love to see your work sometime, Song Yixuan replies with obvious interest. Maybe you could present your concepts at the next department social event? I know my father would be eager to hear from talented students like you. The way she looks at him while saying this makes it clear that their relationship extends beyond academic collaboration. Chen Hao is already positioning himself as both her romantic interest and her father's ideal internship candidate, using my future stolen work as the foundation for both connections. As they walk away together, Chen Hao places his hand on Song Yixuan's lower back in a gesture of casual intimacy that makes my stomach turn. In my previous life, he was touching me that same way, while secretly pursuing her for her family connections. The man who claimed to love me enough to build a future together was already shopping for my replacement before he'd even finished using me. The depth of his deception and calculation is truly staggering, even knowing what I know about his true nature. That evening, I sit in my dorm room, updating my documentation with detailed notes about the day's events. including Chen Hao's continued pressure for access to my research and his developing relationship with Song Yixuan. Every conversation, every manipulation attempt, every lie gets recorded with timestamps and analysis. In my previous life, I had no evidence to support my accusations because I never suspected I would need any. This time, I'm building an unshakable case against him that will destroy any attempt to claim my work or discredit my character. My phone buzzes with another text from Chen Hao. "Thanks for lunch today, beautiful. Can't wait to see what amazing innovations you create. Your brilliant mind is one of the things I love most about you." The message arrives at the exact same time he's probably texting Song Yixuan about the research concepts he plans to steal from me. The casual way he lies to both of us simultaneously reveals a level of sociopathic manipulation that still takes my breath away. I screenshot his message before responding. "Thanks for believing in me. Your support means everything." The irony of thanking him for believing in work he's planning to steal is almost overwhelming, but maintaining the facade is necessary for gathering the evidence I'll need later. Chen Hao thinks he's manipulating a naive girl who trusts him completely. He has no idea that every sweet word, every encouraging gesture, every request for my research is being documented by someone who already knows exactly how this story ends. In my previous life, I died believing that love and hard work were enough to protect me from people who wanted to destroy me. I died thinking that fairness and justice would eventually prevail if I just tried hard enough to prove the truth. This time, I understand that protection comes from preparation, justice comes from evidence, and the only person who can save Li Wei is Li Wei herself. Chen Hao made the mistake of underestimating his victim once. He won't get the chance to make that mistake again. The morning Chen Hao tries to access my laptop marks the beginning of his desperation, though he doesn't realize I'm watching him through the reflection in my window when he thinks I'm asleep. It's barely 6 a.m. when I hear the soft sound of my door opening, followed by careful footsteps across the creaky dormitory floor. In my previous life, I was a heavy sleeper who trusted my boyfriend enough to give him a spare key for emergencies. Now I understand that the only emergency was his growing panic about accessing my research before the internship deadline. I keep my breathing steady and my eyes closed as he approaches my desk where my laptop sits closed. Through my barely parted eyelids, I watch him carefully lift the screen and attempt to power it on, his movements practiced and confident. This isn't his first time trying to access my computer without permission. In my previous life, I probably slept through dozens of these violations, never knowing that the man I trusted was systematically stealing my ideas while I dreamed about our future together. The betrayal feels even more visceral when I witness it happening in real time. The frustrated sigh he releases when he encounters my new password protection tells me everything I need to know about his expectations and entitlement. Chen Hao genuinely believed he would have unrestricted access to my work, because he always had before. The fact that I've changed my security settings without telling him probably feels like a personal betrayal rather than a reasonable privacy measure. I can practically hear his mind racing as he tries to guess passwords based on information he thinks he knows about me. After several failed attempts, he gives up on the laptop and moves to my desk drawers, quietly rifling through my papers and notebooks. The sound of him searching through my personal belongings while thinking I'm unconscious makes my skin crawl, but I force myself to remain still and document this violation mentally. In my previous life, I occasionally noticed that my papers seemed disorganized or that my notebooks weren't where I left them, but I always assumed I was just being forgetful or careless. Now I understand that Chen Hao has been systematically searching my belongings for months. When he finally leaves, I wait another 10 minutes before getting up to check what he was looking for. My decoy notebook, the one I deliberately left in an obvious location filled with fake research concepts, has been moved and photographed. I can tell because I placed a small piece of tape between specific pages that has been disturbed and repositioned incorrectly. Chen Hao took pictures of my fake sustainable housing designs, believing he was stealing genuine research that could secure his internship and impress Song Yixuan's father. The irony of his theft is delicious. The designs he stole are deliberately flawed, based on materials that don't exist and energy systems that violate basic physics principles. Any architect with real experience would immediately recognize the concepts as theoretical nonsense created by someone who doesn't understand practical construction. But Chen Hao's own mediocrity prevents him from recognizing the fake research as garbage because he lacks the expertise to distinguish between innovation and impossibility. Later that morning, I implement the next phase of my strategy by approaching Song Yixuan directly during her study session in the library. In my previous life, I avoided her out of insecurity and jealousy, allowing Chen Hao to control the narrative about both our characters. This time, I'll build my own relationship with her, based on mutual respect and shared interests, making it impossible for him to manipulate either of us as effectively. Excuse me, you're Song Yixuan, right? I'm Li Wei from the architecture department. She looks up from her textbook with polite interest, her expression warming when she recognizes my name. Of course. You're the student everyone says has such innovative ideas about environmental design. I've heard Professor Zhang mention your work in very complimentary terms. Her genuine smile tells me that my reputation for academic excellence has reached her independently of Chen Hao's influence. In my previous life, I never knew that people spoke positively about my work because I was too focused on seeking validation from someone who was already planning to destroy me. That's very kind of him to say, I reply, taking the seat across from her with calculated confidence. Actually, I was hoping to ask your advice about something. I've been hearing concerning stories about students having their research plagiarized or misappropriated. As someone whose father works in the industry, I wondered if you had any insights about protecting intellectual property in academic settings. The question serves multiple purposes: establishing my concerns about theft, positioning Song Yixuan as an expert whose opinion matters, and creating an opportunity to subtly warn her about Chen Hao. Song Yixuan's expression grows serious, and she nods knowingly. Unfortunately, it's more common than people realize. My father has seen several cases where promising students had their innovations stolen by colleagues or romantic partners who claimed collaborative credit for individual work. The way she emphasizes romantic partners suggests that she's already encountered this specific type of academic theft before. Perhaps Chen Hao isn't as unique in his predatory behavior as he believes himself to be. That's exactly what I'm worried about, I confess, allowing genuine concern to color my voice. I've been developing some research that I think could be groundbreaking, but I'm nervous about sharing it with anyone until I have proper protection in place. It's difficult to know who you can trust, especially when someone claims to care about you personally. The subtle implication that I'm being pressured by someone close to me hangs in the air between us, and Song Yixuan's intelligent eyes narrow slightly as she processes what I'm really saying. You're wise to be cautious, she says carefully. Some people are very skilled at manipulating trust and affection to gain access to valuable work. They often target students who are naturally generous and collaborative, exploiting those positive qualities for their own advancement. Her description fits Chen Hao's manipulation tactics so perfectly that I wonder if she's speaking from personal experience or if she's already suspicious of his motives regarding both of us. Our conversation is interrupted when Chen Hao himself appears at our table, his surprise at seeing us together quickly masked by his practiced charm. What a pleasant surprise to find my two favorite people studying together, he says, though I can see the calculation behind his eyes as he tries to determine what we've been discussing. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. The possessive way he places his hand on my shoulder while smiling at Song Yixuan reveals his belief that he can maintain relationships with both of us simultaneously without consequences. We were just discussing academic integrity and intellectual property protection, Song Yixuan replies with pointed directness, watching Chen Hao's face carefully for his reaction. Li Wei was sharing some very insightful concerns about research theft in academic environments. The way she delivers this information feels like a test, gauging whether Chen Hao will reveal guilt or discomfort when confronted with the topic of his own planned crimes. Chen Hao's laugh sounds forced and artificial compared to his usual smooth charm. That seems like a rather paranoid topic for such a beautiful morning. Surely we're all here to support each other's success, rather than worrying about theft and betrayal. His attempt to dismiss our concerns as paranoid while reframing academic protection as antisocial behavior reveals his desperation to discourage exactly the kind of caution that would prevent his theft from succeeding. I don't think protecting one's work is paranoid at all, Song Yichuan responds coolly, her tone suggesting that Chen Hao's reaction has confirmed rather than allayed her suspicions. In fact, I think students who are serious about their futures should be very careful about who they trust with sensitive information. The pointed way she looks at him while saying this makes it clear that whatever romantic relationship he thought he was building with her has just taken a significant step backward. After Chen Hao makes an awkward excuse and leaves us alone, Song Yixuan turns to me with obvious concern. I hope you don't mind me asking, but is he the person you're worried about regarding your research? Her direct question catches me off guard, because I expected to need much more subtle maneuvering to reach this level of mutual understanding. Song Yixuan is clearly more perceptive and intelligent than Chen Hao gave her credit for when he assumed he could manipulate her easily. I'm not ready to make specific accusations, I reply carefully. But yes, I've been feeling pressure from someone close to me to share work that I'm not comfortable sharing yet. Your advice about romantic partners appropriating research hit very close to home. The admission creates a moment of solidarity between us that feels genuine rather than strategic. In my previous life, I never had the chance to connect with Song Yixuan as an equal because Chen Hao kept us separated and suspicious of each other. I'm sorry you're dealing with that kind of pressure, she says sincerely. If you ever need someone to talk to about protecting your work or dealing with manipulative people, please feel free to reach out. Women in academic fields need to support each other against those who would exploit us. Her offer of support feels like the beginning of a real friendship based on mutual respect rather than competition for Chen Hao's attention. That evening I receive a text from Chen Hao that confirms my success in disrupting his manipulation strategy. Seemed like you and Song Yixuan had a pretty intense conversation today. Hope you're not letting other people's negativity influence your trusting nature. I'd hate to see you become suspicious and closed off because of other people's paranoid advice. The message reveals his panic that Song Yixuan and I are building a relationship independent of his influence, potentially comparing notes about his behavior toward both of us. I screenshot his message before responding, just having girl talk about academic life. Nothing to worry about. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. My response is designed to seem reassuring, while actually confirming that Song Yixuan and I are developing the kind of close relationship that makes his manipulation tactics much more difficult to execute effectively. Chen Hao thrives on isolating his victims and controlling the information flow between potential allies. As I update my documentation with notes about today's events, I realize that Chen Hao's desperation is accelerating his timeline in ways that work to my advantage. His failed attempt to access my laptop, his theft of fake research, and his obvious discomfort during my conversation with Song Yixuan all provide valuable evidence of his malicious intent. In my previous life, He was patient enough to slowly manipulate me over months before making his final move. This time, my resistance is forcing him to reveal his true nature much more quickly and obviously. The naive girl who died trusting Chen Hao never would have imagined setting traps for someone she loved, or building alliances against someone she planned to marry. But I'm not that girl anymore. I'm someone who has already experienced the full cost of trusting people who claim to care about me while secretly planning my destruction. This time, Chen Hao will discover that underestimating Li Wei was the biggest mistake of his pathetic life. The moment I decide to accelerate my own timeline comes when I overhear Chen Hao bad-mouthing me to a group of our classmates in the architecture studio. Hidden behind a partition wall, I listen as he plants seeds of doubt about my mental stability and academic integrity with surgical precision. "I'm really concerned about Li Wei lately," he says, with perfectly calibrated worry in his voice. "She's been acting paranoid and secretive about her work, almost like she thinks people are trying to steal from her. I think the academic pressure might be getting to her more than she wants to admit." His performance is masterful, I'll give him that. The concerned boyfriend sharing legitimate worries about his girlfriend's well-being with mutual friends who care about both of us. In my previous life, these conversations laid the groundwork for everyone to believe I was having a mental breakdown when I eventually accused him of theft. By the time I tried to reclaim my stolen work, our entire social circle was already primed to see my accusations as evidence of psychological instability rather than justified outrage over intellectual property theft. "That's really sad," responds Wang Ming, one of our study group members. "Li Wei has always seemed so brilliant and put together. Do you think she needs professional help?" The genuine concern in his voice makes my stomach turn, because I know these people actually care about me and would want to help if they knew the truth. Chen Hao is weaponizing their compassion against me, turning their desire to support me into ammunition for discrediting me later. Chen Hao sighs heavily, playing the role of devoted boyfriend facing a difficult situation. I've tried to be supportive, but she's been pushing me away lately. She won't share her research with me anymore, and she gets defensive when I ask about her projects. I'm starting to wonder if the pressure of the upcoming internship competition is triggering some kind of breakdown. Every word is carefully chosen to make my reasonable self-protection measures sound like symptoms of mental illness. I've heard enough. Rather than confronting him directly and falling into the trap of seeming unstable, I implement a more strategic response. That evening, I stage a carefully orchestrated emotional breakdown in the privacy of my dorm room, making sure Chen Hao witnesses my supposed vulnerability while I'm actually manipulating him into revealing more of his true intentions. When he arrives for our planned study session, I greet him with red-rimmed eyes and a trembling voice. "I'm so sorry for how I've been acting lately," I begin, allowing genuine tears to flow as I think about my past life death and betrayal. "You're right that I've been paranoid and secretive. The stress of the competition has been making me crazy, with worry about my research being stolen. I know that sounds ridiculous when I'm talking about someone I trust as much as you." The irony of apologizing for protecting myself from the person planning to destroy me is almost overwhelming, but the performance serves its purpose. Chen Hao's relief at my apparent return to vulnerability is visible and disgusting. "Oh, sweetheart, you don't need to apologize for being stressed. I understand how much pressure you're under." He pulls me into his arms with the practiced gentleness of someone who has manipulated vulnerable people before. "I just want to help you succeed. You know I would never do anything to hurt you or your career." The lies flow so smoothly from his mouth that I almost admire his skill at deception. I know. You've been so patient with me," I sob against his shoulder, while mentally cataloguing his manipulation techniques. "I've just been so scared that someone might steal my work before I can present it. Professor Zhang has been filling my head with warnings about intellectual property theft, and I think I let it make me paranoid about everyone, even you. The false confession serves multiple purposes, making Chen Hao believe I'm returning to my previous trusting state, blaming Professor Zhang for my caution to potentially undermine that protective relationship, and setting up a test of his true intentions. Professor Zhang can be a bit overly cautious sometimes, Chen Hao agrees, taking the bait exactly as I expected. Not everyone is trying to steal from you, Wei Wei. Most people, especially people who love you, just want to see you succeed. The way he dismisses my mentor's protective advice while positioning himself as someone who loves me reveals his strategy of isolating me from anyone who might help me recognize his manipulation. I pull back to look at him with wide, trusting eyes that I hope convey complete vulnerability. You're right. I think I've been letting fear control me instead of trusting the people who care about me. Maybe it would actually help if I shared my research with you. Having your perspective might make me feel more confident about my work. The offer hangs between us like bait in a trap, and I watch his face carefully for signs of the predatory excitement I know he's feeling. Only if you're really comfortable with that, he says with false reluctance, though his eyes are already calculating. I don't want you to feel pressured to share anything before you're ready. But if showing me your work would help ease your anxiety, I'd be honored to look at it. The performance of reluctance is intended to make me feel like sharing my research is my own idea, rather than his manipulation, giving him plausible deniability later when I accuse him of theft. I think it would help, I lie, reaching for my laptop with trembling hands. I've been working on this sustainable housing design that incorporates some really innovative materials and energy systems. Maybe getting your feedback would help me feel more confident about submitting it for the internship competition. The description makes his breathing change slightly, confirming that this is exactly the type of research he's been hoping to access. I open my laptop and navigate to a carefully prepared folder labeled Final Project, Sustainable Housing Innovation. Inside, I've placed a comprehensive research portfolio that looks impressively detailed and scientifically sound at first glance. Only someone with advanced expertise in material science and energy systems would realize that the entire project is an elaborate fake designed to expose attempted theft. The research appears groundbreaking, but is actually impossible to implement due to fundamental flaws hidden within technical specifications. Chen Hao leans forward eagerly as I scroll through the documents, his eyes scanning my fake innovations with obvious hunger. This is incredible work, Wei Wei. The integration of recycled materials with solar collection systems could revolutionize residential construction. He's already mentally claiming ownership of concepts that don't actually work, planning how to present my fake research as his own breakthrough insights to Song Yixuan's father and the internship selection committee. Do you really think it's good enough for the competition? I ask with feigned insecurity, watching him absorb every detail of my deliberately flawed designs. I've been so worried that my ideas aren't innovative enough to stand out among all the other submissions. The self-doubt I'm performing is designed to make him more confident about stealing my work, convinced that I lack the self-assurance to effectively defend my intellectual property later. Are you kidding? This could win the whole competition, he declares with enthusiasm that feels genuine because he's already envisioning his victory speech. The sustainable materials alone are worth a publication, and the energy efficiency calculations are brilliant. Every compliment he gives my fake work will become evidence against him when I eventually reveal that he's stolen deliberately fraudulent research and tried to present it as legitimate innovation. Over the next hour, I walk him through every aspect of my fake project, making sure he understands enough detail to convincingly claim the work as his own. When he asks if he can take some notes to help me refine my presentation, I agree with grateful enthusiasm, secretly documenting his systematic appropriation of information he believes belongs to me. By the end of the evening, Chen Hao has enough fake research to hang himself professionally while believing he's acquired the key to his future success. After he leaves, I immediately update my evidence files with detailed notes about his reaction to my fake research, his requests for access to my work, and his obvious plans to appropriate my innovations. The comprehensive documentation I've been building will make it impossible for him to deny his attempted theft or claim that I'm mentally unstable when the truth eventually comes out. In my previous life, I had no evidence to support my accusations because I trusted him completely. This time, every manipulation attempt and every lie has been carefully recorded and preserved. The next morning brings confirmation that my strategy is working when Professor Zhang pulls me aside after class with obvious concern. "Li Wei, I've been hearing some troubling rumors about your mental health and academic behavior. Several students have expressed worry that you might be struggling with the pressure of the upcoming competition." His gentle approach tells me that Chen Hao's campaign to undermine my credibility is already spreading through our academic community. "I'm fine, Professor. Just focused on my research and being careful about protecting my work like you advised," I reply calmly, demonstrating the stability and rationality that contradict Chen Hao's narrative about my supposed breakdown. I think some people might be interpreting my caution as paranoia, but I believe your guidance about intellectual property protection is wise. The response serves to reinforce my relationship with Professor Zhang while subtly identifying the source of rumors about my mental state. Professor Zhang studies my face carefully before nodding with apparent relief. "I'm glad to hear that. Your work has been consistently excellent, and your concerns about protection are entirely reasonable. Don't let other people's opinions discourage you from taking appropriate precautions." His validation of my caution, while dismissing concerns about my mental health, provides crucial support that will matter when Chen Hao eventually escalates his attacks on my credibility. As I walk back to my dorm, I spot Chen Hao across campus, apparently studying my fake research notes with intense concentration. The sight of him analyzing fraudulent data while planning to claim it as his own innovation fills me with cold satisfaction. In my previous life, I died believing that he had stolen genuine breakthrough research that would make him successful and wealthy. This time, his theft will result in professional humiliation when he presents impossible designs as legitimate innovations to experts who will immediately recognize the fundamental flaws. The internship competition deadline is 6 weeks away, and Chen Hao has just committed himself to a path that will destroy his academic reputation and expose his true character to everyone who matters. Meanwhile, my real research remains safely protected, while I build the evidence and relationships that will ensure justice when his theft is revealed. This time, the naive girl from the countryside is going to teach the manipulative city boy what happens when you underestimate someone who has already died from your betrayal once before. The evening Chen Hao discovers I've been withholding my real work from him marks the beginning of his most dangerous phase, though he still doesn't understand that I know exactly what he's planning. I'm in the campus library's rare books section when I overhear him talking frantically on his phone, his voice carrying more desperation than I've ever heard before. The research she showed me doesn't match what Professor Zhang described in his faculty meeting. There has to be more advanced work that she's hiding from me. My blood runs cold as I realize someone has been feeding Chen Hao information about my academic progress from faculty discussions. In my previous life, I never knew that he had sources inside the department who were helping him track my research development and plan his theft more effectively. The systematic nature of his manipulation extends far beyond what I experienced directly, involving a network of informants and collaborators who helped him identify and steal the most valuable work from vulnerable students. I position myself behind a bookshelf where I can observe him without being detected, grateful for the eavesdropping skills that have become essential to my survival. I need access to her real project files before the competition deadline, he continues, his voice taking on an edge of panic that tells me his timeline is accelerating beyond his comfort zone. Song Yixuan's father is expecting to see groundbreaking innovation, and what I have so far isn't impressive enough to secure the internship. The mention of Song Yixuan's father confirms my suspicions about Chen Hao's true motivations for pursuing both of us simultaneously. He's not just stealing my work to advance his own career. He's specifically trying to impress the dean with innovations that will justify his romantic relationship with the dean's daughter. The internship is just the first step in a larger plan to marry into academic privilege and build a successful career on the foundation of other people's stolen brilliance. I don't care what it takes, Chen Hao declares with chilling determination. Li Wei is becoming suspicious and protective of her work, but she still trusts me enough to be manipulated. I'll find a way to access her real research, even if I have to drug her and search her laptop while she's unconscious. The casual way he discusses drugging me to facilitate theft reveals a level of premeditated criminality that takes my breath away, even knowing what I know about his character. The phone call ends, and I watch Chen Hao pace back and forth in obvious agitation, his mask of charming confidence completely abandoned when he thinks no one is watching. This is the real Chen Hao, desperate, calculating, and willing to commit serious crimes to get what he wants. The man I once loved enough to die for is planning to drug and assault me to steal the work that represents my entire future. The depth of his maliciousness is truly staggering. I spend the rest of the evening implementing emergency security measures to protect myself from his planned assault while documenting his criminal intentions for the evidence file that will eventually destroy him. By the time he texts me about dinner plans for tomorrow night, I'm fully prepared for whatever he's plotting. Looking forward to spending time together. I've been missing you lately. My response is designed to seem enthusiastic and trusting, while actually confirming that I'll be ready for his attack. The next evening unfolds exactly as I predicted, with Chen Hao choosing the campus's most romantic restaurant and ordering my favorite wine with theatrical attentiveness. I've been thinking about how stressed you've been lately, he says, with practiced concern, reaching across the table to caress my hand. Maybe what you need is a chance to really relax and disconnect from all the academic pressure. I brought something that might help. The way he emphasizes something while maintaining eye contact tells me this is the moment he plans to drug my drink. That's so thoughtful of you, I reply, with feigned gratitude, watching him carefully as he reaches into his jacket pocket and palms a small white pill with the practiced ease of someone who has done this before. The realization that I'm probably not his first victim makes my stomach turn. But I maintain my performance of trusting naivety while mentally documenting every detail of his assault attempt for the criminal charges I plan to file later. When Chen Hao excuses himself to use the restroom, I quickly switch our wine glasses and activate the recording app I've hidden in my purse, making sure to capture audio evidence of whatever confession or incriminating statements he makes when he thinks I'm drugged and helpless. In my previous life, I drank whatever he gave me without question, because I trusted him completely. This time, he'll be consuming his own assault weapon while revealing his true intentions on a recorded confession. "Feeling better already?" he asks when he returns, his eyes scanning my face for signs of chemical impairment as I pretend to sip from the switched glass. "You look more relaxed than you have in weeks. Sometimes the best medicine for anxiety is just letting go and trusting the people who care about you." The double meaning in his words is unmistakable. He's telling me to stop protecting my work while believing he's successfully drugged me into compliance. I lean back in my chair and allow my eyelids to flutter slightly, performing the early stages of sedation while actually remaining completely alert and in control. "You're so good to me, Chen Hao. I don't know what I'd do without you looking out for me." The words taste like poison in my mouth, but they serve their purpose of making him believe his assault is proceeding according to plan. His relief and excitement at my apparent vulnerability are visible and disgusting. "You never have to worry about anything as long as you have me," he declares with possessive satisfaction, his hand tightening on mine in what he probably thinks is romantic reassurance. "I'll always make sure you're safe and successful. We're partners in everything, remember? Your achievements are my achievements too." Every word of this declaration will become evidence against him when I eventually expose his attempt to drug and rob me. As the evening progresses, Chen Hao becomes increasingly bold in his statements about accessing my research, apparently confident that the drug is making me compliant and suggestible. "I've been thinking about your sustainable housing project," he says, with calculated casualness. "Maybe tomorrow you could show me the advanced designs you've been working on. I'd love to help you refine your presentation for the competition." The way he frames theft as help reveals his complete confidence that he can manipulate even a drugged victim into participating in her own destruction. "That sounds wonderful," I slur slightly, maintaining my performance while secretly recording his confession to attempted theft. "I trust your judgment completely. You always know what's best for both of us." The irony of agreeing to trust someone who just tried to drug me is almost overwhelming, but the recorded evidence I'm gathering will be invaluable when I eventually press charges against him for assault and attempted theft. By the time Chen Hao walks me back to my dorm, he's practically glowing with confidence about his successful manipulation and assault. "Get some rest tonight, beautiful," he says, kissing my forehead with false tenderness, while believing he's left me chemically impaired and vulnerable. Tomorrow is going to be a big day for both of us. His satisfaction at drugging his girlfriend to facilitate intellectual property theft is truly breathtaking in its sociopathic calculation. Once I'm safely back in my room, I immediately begin documenting the evening's events with timestamps, recorded confessions, and photographic evidence of the switched wine glasses that still contain residue from his assault attempt. In my previous life, Chen Hao's crimes against me went completely undetected because I never suspected someone I loved would drug and rob me. This time, every aspect of his assault has been documented and preserved for the criminal prosecution that will destroy his future. The text message he sends an hour later confirms his belief that his attack was successful. "Hope you sleep well tonight. Can't wait to see those amazing designs tomorrow. Your brilliant mind is going to change the world." The casual way he references stealing my work while believing he's successfully incapacitated me reveals a level of premeditated criminality that goes far beyond academic dishonesty into serious felony territory. I screenshot his message before updating my evidence files with comprehensive documentation of his attempted assault and planned theft. The naive girl who died trusting Chen Hao never would have imagined that someone claiming to love her was capable of drugging and robbing her. But I'm not that girl anymore. I'm someone who has already experienced the full cost of trusting predators who disguise themselves as protectors. Tomorrow, Chen Hao will discover that trying to drug Li Wei was the biggest mistake of his pathetic life. As I prepare for what I know will be the final phase of our confrontation, I feel a cold satisfaction settling over me like armor. Chen Hao thinks he's successfully incapacitated his victim and positioned himself to steal the work that will secure his future with Song Yixuan. He has no idea that every crime he's committed tonight has been documented and recorded by someone who knows exactly how his mind works. This time, the predator has chosen prey who was already prepared to destroy him. This time, justice won't be a hope, it will be a guarantee. The morning after Chen Hao's failed drugging attempt, he arrives at my dorm with the confidence of someone who believes he's successfully incapacitated his victim and can now claim his stolen prize. "Good morning, beautiful. How are you feeling today?" His fake concern barely masks the predatory excitement in his eyes as he scans my face for signs of lingering chemical impairment. In my previous life, I would have been genuinely drugged and vulnerable at this moment, completely at his mercy as he systematically stole the work that represented my entire future. A little groggy, but much more relaxed than I've been in weeks, I lie, performing the role of compromised victim, while internally marveling at his complete lack of guilt or hesitation about drugging someone he claims to love. You were right about needing to let go and trust the people who care about me. I think I'm ready to share my real research with you now. The words feel like swallowing glass, but they serve their purpose of confirming his belief that his assault was successful, and I'm now compliant enough to participate in my own intellectual destruction. Chen Hao's relief and satisfaction are visible as he settles into my desk chair with the proprietary confidence of someone who believes he's finally gained access to what he's been hunting for months. I'm so glad you're feeling better about sharing your work. Collaboration and trust are what make relationships strong. The way he frames theft as collaboration and assault as trust-building reveals the depth of his psychological manipulation and self-justification. In his mind, drugging me to steal my research was an act of love rather than a serious crime. I open my laptop and navigate to what appears to be my real research folder, though it's actually another carefully constructed trap designed to expose his theft in the most damaging way possible. This is the actual sustainable housing project I've been developing, I say with feigned vulnerability, watching his eyes widen as he sees what looks like genuinely groundbreaking innovation. I've been so scared to show it to anyone because it represents everything I've worked toward since starting university. The research I show him is technically sound and genuinely innovative, but it's also completely different from the fake designs he's already photographed and studied. More importantly, every document is embedded with hidden timestamps, watermarks, and digital signatures that will make it impossible for him to claim the work as his own without being immediately exposed as a thief. I've spent weeks preparing this trap specifically for the moment when his desperation would drive him to commit obvious academic fraud. This is incredible, Weiwei, Chen Hao breathes, his voice thick with greed as he absorbs concepts that he believes will secure his internship and impress Song Yixuan's father. The integration of biomimetic materials with passive solar design could revolutionize sustainable architecture. This isn't just innovative, it's potentially worth millions in patent applications. His focus on the commercial value of my work rather than its environmental benefits reveals his true priorities and motivations. I watch him carefully as he requests to take some notes about my research, secretly documenting his systematic appropriation of information, while he believes I'm too impaired to recognize what he's actually doing. Of course you can take notes, I agree, with performed gratitude. Your insights always help me see my work more clearly. I trust your judgment completely about what aspects might be most impressive to industry professionals. Every word I speak will later serve as evidence that I never consented to him claiming my work as his own innovation. Over the next 2 hours, Chen Hao methodically photographs and copies every aspect of my real research, believing he's successfully stolen the breakthrough innovation that will transform his mediocre academic career into a triumph. What he doesn't realize is that the files he's copying contain hidden tracking code that will alert me whenever they're accessed or modified, providing real-time evidence of his theft and any attempts to present my work as his own creation. The truly satisfying part of watching his theft unfold is knowing that he's simultaneously destroying his relationship with Song Yixuan through his own arrogance and overconfidence. While he's focused on stealing my work, he's been neglecting to maintain the careful balance required to manipulate both of us effectively. His desperation to access my research has made him careless about concealing his true character from the woman whose father he hopes to impress. As if summoned by my thoughts, Song Yixuan herself appears at my door just as Chen Hao finishes copying my files. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, she says, with polite concern, though her eyes narrow slightly when she sees Chen Hao hunched over my laptop, with obvious guilt written across his features. I wanted to follow up on our conversation about academic integrity and research protection. I've been thinking about your concerns quite a bit. The timing of her arrival is perfect, allowing her to witness Chen Hao in the act of appropriating my work, while he believes I'm chemically impaired and unable to protect myself. Actually, Chen Hao was just helping me organize my research files, I explain with deliberate vagueness, watching Song Yixuan's face as she processes the implications of finding him alone with my laptop, while I appear disoriented and vulnerable. How thoughtful of him to help with such important work, Song Yixuan replies with pointed politeness, her tone suggesting that she finds his help more suspicious than generous. I hope he's being appropriately careful with your intellectual property. Research theft can happen so easily when people have unrestricted access to each other's work. The way she looks at Chen Hao while saying this makes it clear that his reputation with her has taken a significant hit. Chen Hao's discomfort with Song Yixuan's pointed questions and obvious suspicions is painful to watch, even knowing what he deserves. I would never do anything to compromise Li Wei's work, he protests with the wounded innocence of someone who has been unjustly accused. We're in a relationship. We trust each other completely and share everything. His emphasis on sharing everything reveals his belief that romantic relationships give him automatic access to his partner's intellectual property. Trust is certainly important in relationships, Song Yixuan agrees with careful diplomacy. But even in the closest partnerships, individual achievements should remain properly attributed to their creators. Collaboration is wonderful, but it shouldn't erase individual recognition for original work. Her statement serves as both a warning to Chen Hao and validation for my concerns about protecting my research from appropriation. After Chen Hao makes an awkward excuse and leaves with copies of my research safely stored on his phone, Song Yixuan turns to me with obvious concern about what she's witnessed. Are you feeling all right, Li Wei? You seem a bit disoriented, and finding him alone with your laptop while you appear vulnerable raises some serious red flags about his intentions. Her direct observation confirms that his assault attempt was obvious to someone with enough experience to recognize the signs. I think he might have put something in my drink last night, I confess with calculated vulnerability, allowing her to believe she's uncovering his crime rather than walking into my prepared revelation. I felt strange after dinner, and this morning I woke up feeling foggy and confused. When he asked to see my research, I felt like I couldn't refuse, even though I normally wouldn't share it. The admission creates the foundation for the criminal charges I plan to file, while positioning Song Yixuan as a witness to his predatory behavior. Song Yixuan's face goes pale with genuine horror as she processes the implications of what I've revealed. Li Wei, what you're describing sounds like you were drugged without your consent. That's not just academic dishonesty. That's serious criminal assault. You need to report this to campus security immediately and preserve any evidence of what happened. Her reaction confirms that she's intelligent enough to recognize the severity of Chen Hao's crimes and brave enough to support me in pursuing justice. I'm scared that no one will believe me, I admit with performed vulnerability, though my fear is entirely manufactured for dramatic effect. He's been telling people that I'm mentally unstable and paranoid about my work being stolen. If I accuse him of drugging me to steal my research, everyone will think I'm having a breakdown. The false confession serves to explain why I haven't already reported his crimes while revealing his systematic campaign to undermine my credibility. I believe you completely, Song Yixuan declares with fierce determination, and I'll support you in whatever action you decide to take against him. What Chen Hao did to you is inexcusable, and he needs to face consequences for his behavior. Her offer of support provides crucial validation and alliance that will matter when I eventually expose his crimes publicly. In my previous life, I faced his betrayal completely alone. This time, I have powerful allies who recognize his true character. The rest of the morning is spent documenting Chen Hao's assault and theft with Song Yixuan's help, creating a comprehensive evidence file that will destroy him academically, socially, and potentially legally. By noon, we've prepared a formal complaint to Professor Zhang, a report to campus security about the drugging incident, and a detailed account of his systematic theft of my research. The evidence is overwhelming and irrefutable. Most satisfying of all is the knowledge that Chen Hao has no idea his crimes have been discovered and documented. He's probably spending his afternoon preparing to present my stolen research as his own breakthrough innovation, confident that he's successfully manipulated both Song Yixuan and me into supporting his advancement. His shock when he discovers that we've allied against him and prepared his destruction will be absolutely delicious. As Song Yixuan and I walk toward Professor Zhang's office to file our complaint, I feel a cold satisfaction settling over me like justice itself. Chen Hao thought he could drug and rob me the way he probably drugged and robbed other victims before me. He thought his charm and manipulation tactics would protect him from consequences while he built his career on stolen work and assault. This time, the predator chose prey who was already prepared to destroy him completely. This time, his victims have allies, evidence, and the courage to ensure that justice is swift and devastating. Professor Zhang's reaction to our evidence against Chen Hao is everything I hoped for, and more devastating than Chen Hao could possibly imagine. The elderly professor's face grows darker with each piece of documentation we present, his decades of academic experience allowing him to immediately recognize the systematic nature of Chen Hao's crimes. This is not the first time I've encountered this type of predatory behavior, he says grimly, examining the time-stamped files and digital evidence of theft. But it may be the most comprehensively documented case I've seen in 40 years of teaching. The formal investigation that follows unfolds with swift and merciless efficiency, revealing that Chen Hao's crimes against me are part of a much larger pattern of academic predation that extends back to his first semester. Within hours of our complaint being filed, 3 other students come forward with similar stories of research theft, manipulation, and in one case, suspected drugging during a study session that resulted in stolen thesis material. Chen Hao isn't just an opportunistic thief, he's a systematic predator who has built his entire academic career on exploiting vulnerable students. By afternoon, campus security has confiscated Chen Hao's laptop and phone, discovering not just my stolen research, but a comprehensive archive of appropriated work from multiple victims spanning 2 years. The digital forensics reveal that he's been systematically photographing other students' research, maintaining detailed files on their academic progress, and coordinating with sources inside the faculty to identify the most valuable projects for theft. The scope of his criminal enterprise is truly breathtaking. The moment Chen Hao realizes his crimes have been discovered and documented comes when security officers escort him from his advanced design seminar in full view of our entire department. I watch from across the courtyard as he's led away in handcuffs, his face pale with shock and disbelief that his carefully constructed facade has finally collapsed. The students who witnessed his arrest immediately begin sharing the news through social media and group chats, ensuring that his humiliation will be witnessed by everyone who matters in our academic community. Song Yixuan's reaction to learning the full scope of Chen Hao's deception provides the most satisfying validation of my decision to trust her with the truth. I feel sick knowing that I almost fell for his manipulation, she confesses, as we watch news of his arrest spread across campus. He was positioning himself to use me exactly the same way he used you and those other students. If you hadn't been brave enough to expose him, I might have been his next victim. Her genuine gratitude and horror at her narrow escape confirm that my strategy of building alliances rather than fighting alone was absolutely correct. The academic committee's emergency meeting that evening results in Chen Hao's immediate expulsion from the university, the revocation of all his previous academic achievements, and a formal recommendation that criminal charges be filed for assault and intellectual property theft. Professor Zhang personally delivers the news to me with obvious satisfaction at seeing justice served. The committee was unanimous in their decision, he reports. Chen Hao's academic career is finished, and his criminal behavior will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Even more devastating for Chen Hao's future prospects is the discovery that several of his previous successes were also based on stolen work, including the portfolio that earned him admission to our prestigious program and the research project that won him a departmental scholarship last year. The systematic review of his academic record reveals that he has never produced a single original idea of genuine merit. His entire identity as a brilliant student was an elaborate fraud built on the stolen brilliance of others. The social consequences of his exposure spread through our campus community like wildfire, destroying not just his academic standing, but his personal relationships and future opportunities. Students who once admired his charm and apparent success now view him as a predatory criminal who targeted vulnerable classmates for systematic exploitation. The girl from his hometown, who used to visit him on weekends, stops returning his calls after learning about the drugging allegations. Even his parents express shame and disappointment when campus security contacts them about his criminal behavior. Song Yixuan's father, the dean, takes personal interest in ensuring that Chen Hao faces the maximum possible consequences for his crimes against students in his department. Academic integrity is the foundation of everything we do here, he declares during an emergency faculty meeting that I'm invited to attend as a victim. Students who prey on their classmates through theft and assault have no place in our community and deserve no mercy in their punishment. His support provides powerful institutional backing that will ensure Chen Hao's destruction is complete and permanent. The criminal investigation reveals that Chen Hao's attempt to drug me was not his first assault, leading to additional charges from victims who had been too afraid or ashamed to come forward previously. The prosecutor assigned to the case describes his behavior as a calculated pattern of predatory criminal activity targeting vulnerable students, language that will follow him for the rest of his life and make it impossible for him to rebuild his reputation or career in any legitimate field. Most satisfying of all is the discovery that the fake research he stole from me earlier would have destroyed his credibility even if his other crimes hadn't been exposed. The materials science professor, who reviewed his innovative designs before his arrest, described them as fundamentally flawed concepts that violate basic principles of physics and chemistry, noting that anyone who presented such work as legitimate innovation would be permanently discredited as incompetent or fraudulent. Chen Hao's theft of my deliberately sabotaged research would have ruined him professionally, even without the criminal charges. As news of Chen Hao's crimes spreads beyond our campus, I receive messages of support from students at other universities who recognize his pattern of behavior and suspect he may have victimized people in their communities as well. The investigation expands to include his previous schools and internships, revealing a trail of exploitation and theft that stretches back to his high school years. Chen Hao has apparently been preying on trusting classmates and colleagues since adolescence, perfecting his manipulation techniques through years of practice on vulnerable victims. The irony that brings me the deepest satisfaction is learning that Chen Hao's obsession with impressing Song Yixuan's father was completely pointless from the beginning. The dean reveals that he had already identified Chen Hao as a student of questionable character based on subtle inconsistencies in his academic work and suspicious patterns in his research development. I've been watching him carefully for months, he admits privately. Students who achieve sudden breakthroughs without corresponding growth in foundational knowledge are almost always engaged in academic dishonesty. The comprehensive nature of Chen Hao's downfall exceeds even my most optimistic hopes for justice. His expulsion, criminal prosecution, social exile, family disappointment, and permanent reputation destruction represent the complete annihilation of everything he worked to build through years of systematic exploitation. The man who destroyed my previous life by stealing my work and claiming I was mentally unstable now faces the world knowing that everyone sees him as a predatory criminal who preys on vulnerable students. In my previous life, Chen Hao succeeded in stealing my work, destroying my reputation, and causing my death while building a successful career on the foundation of my innovations. This time, his attempt to drug and rob me has resulted in his complete exposure as a systematic predator whose entire academic identity was fraudulent. The naive girl from the countryside has become the architect of his total destruction, using his own criminal behavior as the weapon that annihilated his future. As I watch Chen Hao's former friends and supporters distance themselves from his toxic reputation, I feel a cold satisfaction that justice has finally been served. The predator who thought he could manipulate and exploit vulnerable students with impunity has discovered that some prey are more dangerous than they appear. This time, choosing Li Wei as a victim was the biggest and last mistake of his pathetic life. The morning of the internship presentation arrives with the crisp clarity of inevitable justice, and I wake up knowing that today will finally close the circle of revenge that began with my death in a previous life. As I prepare my genuine sustainable housing research for presentation to the panel of industry professionals, I feel a cold satisfaction knowing that Chen Hao is sitting in a holding cell, his criminal trial scheduled for next month, while I prepare to claim the success that was always rightfully mine. The university's main auditorium is packed with students, faculty, and industry representatives, the same venue where Chen Hao stole my work and destroyed my life in my previous timeline. This time, I walk into that space as the acknowledged victim of his criminal enterprise, rather than the naive girl whose accusations were dismissed as mental instability. The vindication feels almost overwhelming as I take my place among the presenting students, knowing that everyone in the audience understands exactly what Chen Hao tried to steal from me. Song Yixuan greets me backstage with genuine warmth and support that represents the friendship we've built through our shared recognition of Chen Hao's true character. "I'm so proud of you for having the courage to expose him," she says quietly, adjusting my presentation materials with the care of someone who genuinely wants me to succeed. "Your strength in protecting yourself and other students probably saved lives and careers. Today is your day to shine with work that was always yours." Professor Zhang approaches with obvious pride and satisfaction as he reviews my presentation setup one final time. "Li Wei, I want you to know that your research represents exactly the kind of innovation and integrity that our department strives to foster," he declares with the authority of someone whose opinion matters deeply in our academic community. "What you've accomplished despite the criminal targeting you faced shows remarkable resilience and brilliance." His validation means more than any award, because it comes from someone who witnessed my struggle and supported my protection efforts. The presentation order places me in the coveted final slot, traditionally reserved for the most promising candidate, a position that Chen Hao held in my previous life when he presented my stolen work as his own breakthrough innovation. The irony of claiming his former position with my genuine research feels like poetic justice of the highest order. This time, Li Wei will present her own work to acclaim and recognition rather than watching it be stolen and claimed by a predator. As I take the stage and face the panel of industry professionals, I feel the ghost of my past life trauma finally beginning to dissolve under the weight of present life justice. Distinguished panel, faculty, and fellow students I begin with confidence that comes from knowing my work is genuine and protected. I'm honored to present my research on revolutionary sustainable housing design that integrates biomimetic materials with passive solar collection systems to create truly eco-friendly residential architecture. The presentation unfolds flawlessly, with each aspect of my genuine innovation receiving the recognition and admiration it deserves from experts who can immediately recognize breakthrough thinking. The panel's questions reveal their excitement about the commercial potential and environmental impact of my designs, validating years of research and development that Chen Hao tried to steal for his own advancement. This is what it feels like to receive credit for work that actually belongs to you. The moment that crystallizes my complete victory comes when Dr. Liu, the lead industry representative, interrupts my conclusion with obvious enthusiasm. Miss Li, this is the most innovative approach to sustainable architecture I've encountered in my 20-year career. The integration of materials science with energy efficiency represents a paradigm shift that could revolutionize residential construction globally. We would be honored to have you join our firm as an intern and eventual full-time researcher. The auditorium erupts in applause that feels like vindication itself, washing over me as I stand in the exact spot where Chen Hao once claimed credit for my stolen brilliance. This time, the recognition belongs to its rightful creator, and everyone present understands the justice of that recognition. Song Yixuan's proud smile from the audience tells me that our friendship, built on mutual respect rather than competition for a predator's attention, has survived and flourished. But my moment of triumph is interrupted by a commotion at the back of the auditorium as Chen Hao himself appears, apparently released on bail and desperate to make one final attempt at claiming my work. That research was developed collaboratively, he shouts from the doorway, his voice carrying the desperation of someone whose entire future has collapsed. Li Wei and I worked together on those designs. She can't take full credit for innovations that came from our partnership. His pathetic attempt to steal credit, even after his criminal conviction, reveals the depth of his delusion and entitlement. The security officers who immediately move to restrain him are unnecessary because the entire auditorium responds to his presence with contempt and disgust rather than confusion or sympathy. Professor Zhang stands and addresses Chen Hao with cold authority. Mr. Chen, you are not welcome on this campus following your expulsion for criminal assault and systematic academic theft. Your attempt to claim credit for Miss Li's work has already been thoroughly investigated and debunked by digital forensics and witness testimony. Dr. Liu's response to Chen Hao's interruption provides the most devastating blow to any remaining credibility he might claim. Young man, we've been briefed on your criminal case and the systematic theft of student work that formed the basis of your previous academic achievements. Your reputation in the industry is permanently destroyed. No legitimate firm will ever hire you after what you've done to these students. The finality in his voice makes it clear that Chen Hao's criminal behavior has closed every professional door permanently. Song Yixuan's father, Dean Song, delivers the coup de grâce with institutional authority that crushes any hope Chen Hao might harbor for academic rehabilitation. Mr. Chen, your criminal conviction for assault and intellectual property theft has been reported to every major university and professional organization in the field. Your academic transcript has been flagged permanently to indicate fraudulent achievements based on stolen work. Your career in architecture or any related field is finished. The comprehensive nature of his professional destruction is truly breathtaking. As security escorts Chen Hao from the auditorium for the final time, he attempts one last desperate appeal directly to me. Wei Wei, you know we were partners. You know I helped develop those concepts. Please don't let them destroy everything we built together. His use of we and together reveals that even facing complete ruin, he still believes he has some claim to my work and some right to my mercy after drugging and robbing me. My response echoes through the auditorium with the finality of absolute justice. Chen Hao, there was never a we in my research. There was only you trying to steal from me and me protecting myself from a predator. The only thing you built was a criminal case against yourself. Some lessons can only be learned through consequences. The words feel like closing a door on the nightmare that killed my previous life, and opening a door to the limitless future I've earned through my own brilliance and resilience. The panel's unanimous decision to award me the internship feels like vindication, not just for my research, but for every victim of academic predation who has ever been dismissed as paranoid or unstable for protecting themselves from theft. Dr. Liu announces that my starting position will include a research budget, patent support, and fast-track consideration for their graduate fellowship program. The opportunities opening before me exceed even my most optimistic dreams from my previous life. As the formal ceremony concludes, and I receive congratulations from faculty, students, and industry professionals, I feel the weight of past life trauma finally lifting from my shoulders. The naive girl who died believing that love and hard work were enough to protect her from predators has been replaced by someone who understands that protection comes from preparation, justice comes from evidence, and success comes from refusing to be anyone's victim. Professor Zhang's final comment as he shakes my hand captures the magnitude of what has been accomplished. Li Wei, you've not only secured your own future, but protected countless other students from falling victim to predatory behavior. Your courage in exposing Chen Hao's crimes has made our entire academic community safer. His words remind me that justice served isn't just personal revenge, it's protection for future victims who will never experience what I suffered. Walking out of that auditorium with my internship secured and my future bright, I pass the exact spot where Chen Hao was arrested for trying to claim my work. The symbolism feels perfect. The predator destroyed by his own criminal greed, while his intended victim claims the success that was always rightfully hers. This time, choosing Li Wei as prey was Chen Hao's final and most devastating mistake.